So there's two different versions of this tweet, but I'll start off with this one called Appealingly Persuasive. So we're going to talk a little bit about philosophy and persuasion today. I do not purport to be a persuasion expert, seek subject matter experts, but I do enjoy the topic. I am learning every day, and I enjoy talking about it with you. So leave me a comment below with any of your thoughts on philosophy, persuasion, or anything else that floats your boat. And we'll move on here to appealingly persuasive. Kairos, or Kairos, is the appeal to timing, opportunity, urgency, and agency. Ethos is the appeal to authority, law, ethics, and people. Logos is the appeal to reason, logic, science, and evidence. Pathos is the appeal to emotion, irrationality, imagination, fear. So ultimately you have K-E-L-P. So I say, kelp me, kelp you. Kelp me, kelp you. So that's how that started. And then the next named tweet will do that all over again. This tweet is called Kelp Me, Kelp You. K-E-L-P. All right. So back to Kairos is an appeal to timing, opportunity, urgency, agency, and action. It is an appeal to action. Ethos is an appeal to authority, law, ethics, people, and credentials. Logos is an appeal to reason, logic, science, evidence, and math. Pathos is an appeal to emotion, irrationality, imagination, faith, and fear. So, like I say, seek subject matter experts. I'm not an expert on philosophy, but again, it is a topic I do enjoy discussing. And when you're talking about philosophy, there are some very, very basic concepts. In fact, I talked about these on Twitter a few months back, and somebody said it was high school level. I don't really hear these in regular dialogue, but it's helpful to have a system for breaking down the types of arguments, debates, and things that you're having. Like what arguments are you making in a debate, and how are you looking to persuade? So we'll start off with Kairos or Kairos. That's K-A-I-R-O-S. The appeal to action. So this is when you're trying to persuade people. You're trying to get them to act. So you format your argument that way. You're trying to get them to do something. You might be presenting some sort of danger or something, and saying, well, you have to act now. Act now. There's an urgency. They want you to take agency. They want you to act with a sense of time. So I say timing here. And, of course, opportunity. So if someone's trying to sell you a product and they say, well, act now, that is a Kairos or Kairos. I don't actually know how to say it. Like I said, seek subject matter experts. There are certainly a number of philosophers online, and, of course, all the old ones from thousands, hundreds of years ago, and so forth. But, yeah, knowing what these terms mean could prove beneficial if you don't already know. So that's using timing, opportunity, urgency, agency, action as a way of persuading and winning you over to their argument, or getting you to act in the way that the presenter, the speaker, wishes. So now we have ethos, the appeal to authority, law, ethics, people, and credentials. So this is how you present something with an ethos-based argument. If you're going ahead and pointing to, well, it's an appeal to authority. You're appealing to, for example, the experts, or somebody that has some sway over a situation, someone that should know better. You'd be making an ethos-based argument. You'd be appealing to law. You'd be appealing to rules that have been set. So you'd say, well, it doesn't matter if it makes sense. It doesn't need to have logic. That would be logos. It doesn't matter if it feels emotionally right. That would be pathos. And there's no sense of urgency or timing, so there's no Kairos. But you're just saying, look, here's the law, okay? And this is how I intend to convince you or persuade you, or some would say manipulate you, we'll talk about that later, to do something, or to change your view, or to make their argument whole, to make it complete. Okay. Ethics, of course, so we're talking about, again, morality. It's an appeal to morality. It's an appeal to the way things should be, the rules, the way they should be. Ethics, not focusing on the logic again, or the emotion, but on if it's moral, if it's ethical, if it's, it's about the rules, about the structure. You'd be appealing to, you'd be saying, well, we're doing this for the reason that it's ethically sound, that it matches with the way that we should be doing things. Of course, an appeal to people, you're appealing to the experts. And again, I do say, seek subject matter experts. And leave me a comment below if you know any good philosophers or persuasion experts. But it's an appeal to people, who they are. A guilt by association would be an ethos-based argument, saying, well, this person is either this mutable characteristic or this immutable characteristic, and, well, that's the appeal to people. And of course, you'd look at their credentials. You'd appeal to their credentials, what their education might be, what their background might be. Again, mutable or immutable. But in the case of credentials, you're talking about a mutable characteristic. Mutable being something that they learned, or something that became part of their character, became added to their credentialed background. So they have some sort of title. Potentially, they might have a title. They might have a degree or a certificate. They might have something that gives them a bit more sway, a bit more leverage when they're discussing whatever topic it might be. If you're talking to somebody who might be trying to sell you something to do with home repair, you'd want to get a licensed contractor, somebody that's credentialed, and that's how they would win you over. They'd say, well, look, here's my credentials. Or if you're talking about something a little bit more intellectual, you'd say, well, here's my degree. I have a doctorate in this, so here's my credential. And that's why you should listen to me and not that other person on this topic. I have my credentials. Or you could listen to both of us. You could listen to both of us, but again, credentials help you win people over to your argument. Logos, of course, is straight down the middle. You got logic, reason, science, evidence, math. So people that are more scientifically minded would say that, want to make logos-based arguments more often. And, you just appeal to the underlying logic of the situation. You'd focus on reason over looking at who the person is, because looking at who the person is, of course, is a ethos-based argument. You'd focus on what the factors are. You'd use the scientific method, and you'd really try to narrow down what is true and what is false, and then work from there using logos. People might use things like statistics. They might use empirical evidence. They might use scientific evidence. That might show an experiment. They might say, well, this always this always happens when we put this in this together. So that's it's showing off a scientific truth as the argument. And economics, again, another almost, these are sciences. Anything that appeals to the science, that appeals to how things work, that would be a logos-based argument. Just the underlying logic, the math, as it were, the evidence-based, science-based, logic-based arguments, reason. being able to reason. This is all, of course, the logos-based argument. And then when you're trying to persuade people using pathos, okay, you have emotion, irrationality, imagination, faith, and fear. These are all different tools that you'd use that are pathos-based. You try to appeal to the human side, to the emotional side of somebody. You try to put a little fear into them. You try to appeal to their faith. May it be like a religious faith or perhaps a modern religion, which can be even for the devoutly secular. But yeah, you'd appeal to their irrationality. So logos appeals to rationality. It appeals to that, nuts and bolts, gears turning scientific mind. And then you have pathos, which kind of focuses more on the slightly irrational, and again, we are irrational beings. All 7+ billion of us are irrational beings that are grasping for reason at all times, grasping for order and rationality in our lives. But pathos, of course, is a way to pulling the heartstrings would be a pathos-based argument. And then, of course, appealing to imagination. Again, we're going to talk about persuasion in a moment, but appealing to imagination, like letting you conjure up the images in your head that might persuade you to this person's argument, that they're using pathos. That's another part of it. Faith, imagination, and of course fear, and other emotions such as making people feel shame, making them feel guilty. These are very powerful, actually, in terms of political persuasion. People change their opinions oftentimes very much based on their emotions. That goes for all of us. We change our opinions based largely on our emotions. There is a through line, a backbone of logic to many of our decisions. We think there's logic, and oftentimes there is, but really a lot of it's pathos-based. It's how we feel about something. Does it make us feel good? Does it make us feel bad? So a pathos-based argument would try to work on emotions more than logic centers. It wouldn't focus on association or the person there as an ethos, and it wouldn't focus on an appeal to action, getting you to act urgently. It would just be focusing, and again, usually a good argument will have 1, 2, I'd say 2, 3, almost all of these integrated into it. So you'd have some urgency to act, and then you'd also have some pathos in there, and there's some ethos. I am credentialed. I am an expert, and I'm telling you, listen to my argument. There's ethos, and of course, putting some logic in there, putting some science, putting some evidence in there to tie it all together and make you go, oh, well, there is objective truth to this. There's something to this that isn't, it isn't just faith-based, it's evidence-based. So that's Kelp me, Kelp you.